Hi everyone, my name is Emily Crouch. I am the Customer Marketing Coordinator here at CoreView. It's great to be here today with you all for our webinar around license management. We have a few housekeeping rules, I guess. If you have any experience with any technical issues, please use the chat feature and I will try my best to help sort those out for you. This event is being recorded and you will receive an email afterwards with the link to all of the assets should you wish to go back and take another look. And at the end of the webinar, there is going to be a Q&A where you can ask any questions to our hosts. So please use the Q&A feature on your screen. So our host today, we are being joined by Dan Flanagan, who is our VP of Product. And we're also going to be joined by Roy Martinez, who is our technology evangelist. Dan, if you want to take everyone through the agenda for today.
Great, thank you, Emily. All right, so as we almost always do with our roadmap webinars, we try to do a product sandwich here. At the beginning, we're going to go over what's been released recently. I understand it's hard to keep up with the pace that we're constantly putting out new features, so we just want to go over what's come out in the last quarter or so and give you a chance to kind of catch up. We're going to go through a demo today of license management and the capabilities that help you to optimize your license management practices. And then we'll circle back and take a look at what's coming up next in the roadmap in the next quarter or two. So let's jump right into it. So the big thing that you're going to see today and that Roy is going to demo for us is the new license pool redesign. License pools, we did a redesign when we moved to the new UX, and I would say of all the things we did in the new UX, the license pools was the thing that was least well received. So we have spent time going back and working with a number of customers on really not just going back to what we had before, but figuring out what is the best of both worlds. What are we trying to achieve? And so what you'll see now with the license pools are a whole host of features that are designed to make it easier for you to manage. So we have things like out-of-the-box pivot tables to show you grouped by license pools, grouped by SKUs or grouped by pools, inline editing features. We've redesigned all of the columns to really give you the information that you need in order to understand the state of your licenses. And even changed the terminology in a lot of them to make sure that they're better understandable, or more understandable. We've introduced some troubleshooting views to help you really, get down to some key use cases quickly, like understanding if you over allocated licenses or if you are running low on capacity. And we've cleaned up the advanced filters capability. So again, Roy will walk through this as well as kind of talking about license management in general, but this is just a quick view of some of the enhancements that you'll see in live and in person in a few minutes. The other big thing that has been not just months, but almost a full year of effort has gone into the launch of the new hybrid agent. And so with CoreView's new hybrid agent, we really went back to scratch and said, instead of saying, okay, well, we have a single, we can support a single forest and now we're going to support multi-forest, we really went back to scratch and said, how do we support really, frankly, any topology? How do we make sure that regardless of how many different forests that people have, multi-tenant, multi-forest, whichever type of topology they have, that we can support it. And so this is now live. We have customers who are in production using it. And basically we are open for business. So if you, as part of your deployment, maybe you put off multi-tenant, maybe you connected only one of your forests and you put off multi-forest, or maybe you said, well, we won't do hybrid yet. We'll just manage our cloud-only capabilities and use us primarily for reporting. Now is the opportunity to really change that and take full advantage of the power of CoreView and our ability to manage both cloud and on-premise infrastructure. With Teams, we've provided the ability to support when there are the no agents capability of Teams call queue management. So now, if you have, in the event that you have no agents available, you can configure what the behavior is going to be at that moment when calls come in and there are no agents available. So this is a setting that was available in Microsoft natively, but was not available in CoreView. So we've extended CoreView to support this additional feature of Teams Phone. We continue to launch new playbooks and new playbook policies. So there are a couple of new Exchange playbook policies that have been released. So we released, since we released the initial Exchange management playbook, so we now have the ability to identify distribution groups without owners. And previously we didn't have some of the workflow actions that we needed in order to remediate that. So now that's been, we've added some additional workflow capabilities that allow us to manage those distribution groups and add owners. Similarly, mailbox with external forwarding, we have the ability to now manage that so that in the event that you detect that and you want to turn that off, that you can actually route that through that remediation and disable the external forwarding on those mailboxes. We've also done some improvements to the email editor within Workflow, basically giving you a code view. So sometimes if you are in the, trying to do some fine formatting, or maybe you're trying to insert some, links or other things where basically you need to, it's going to be easier for you to work in the code to look at it in HTML than it is to look at it in a GUI. We've provided that ability to switch over, toggle over to the code view for those of you who feel more comfortable or just have a little bit more control over the look and feel and the functionality of the email. So that view is just designed to help some of our more advanced users who really just need to get in and make a few tweaks in order to optimize the emails that are associated with a given workflow. Some other things beyond just product. So we have been working, again, this is one of those big projects that is finally getting a reveal. We've been working on a whole new version of the Knowledge Center. The CoreView knowledge base, or the support site, is one of those cases of something that grew over time, right? It continued to evolve and get things added to it. And when that happens, sometimes it can be really hard to control the organization structure. You start, putting things in odd places, and looking at a kind of a table of contents becomes really challenging to be able to say, okay, I need to get to all the content about this topic or that topic. And so we went back to scratch and built a brand new knowledge base, a brand new knowledge center. And so it is available now at help.coreview.com. It's all new content. We went through and really curated all of the existing content, rewrote everything, made sure things are clear, especially making sure everything is appropriate for the new user experience. Got rid of old articles that were no longer relevant or had out-of-date information. And so it's a fresh new knowledge center. You're able to get to it directly. Or actually there'll be a link available through the Resource Center. It'll be called Knowledge Center Beta because we're still in the early days of it. But it's available now for everybody to take a look, to experiment. One of the coolest features is if you see something in an article and you actually think it's wrong, or you have a question, you can highlight the text in the article, and there'll be a little plus sign you can click on, and you can actually add a comment on the fly. So you could say, hey, I need more information about the XYZ setting that's on this page. I don't see it in this article. And our documentation team moderates all those comments, gets all those comments. They're not visible to other customers. They're just basically a way for you to communicate back directly to the team. They'll see that and they'll go and address that concern. So it's a great new capability of this new Knowledge Center, and we're really excited about it. And the other thing that we launched, let's see, it looks like there's a little video here. I think we'll skip past the video, is that Core Voice is now live. We've announced that and it's gone out to all customers. So again, through the Resource Center, this is a replacement of User Voice. It's single sign-on, so you don't have to worry any longer about a separate set of credentials. And so basically, every user who is either a tenant admin or who has been assigned the role of Core Voice, when they go to the Resource Center, they'll see this little link for Core Voice. You can go in, that'll open up that within the little panel up here within the Resource Center, or you can launch a full screen version. It allows you to submit enhancement ideas. It allows you to vote on other people's ideas and kind of tag your interest in them. And one of the coolest new things is it allows you to prioritize your requests. So you can go in and you can say, I'd love these 10 things, but if changing the look and feel of license pools is the most important to you, you can go look at your entire list that you've tagged, that you've marked that you're interested in or that you voted on, and you can prioritize. You can say, this one is the most important, this one I like, but it's the least important. And again, that helps us, it gives signals to us to understand not just how many votes that that people are adding, but how important those features are to the people who are voting on them. Not all votes are equal, right? Sometimes I might say, yeah, I'd like that feature, but that doesn't mean I want you to work on that before you work on license pools. So it's a great signal for you to be able to tell us what it is that you want us focused on. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Hugo and allow him to do a walkthrough and demonstration of the new license pool capability.
Cool, thanks so much, Dan, appreciate it. Am I audible here? Can you hear me all right? I hope so.
Yep.
I should have a visual for you in just a moment. Great. All right, so yeah, again, my name is Roy Martinez. For those of you that don't know me, I am currently acting as technology evangelist / solutions architect / part-time product marketing manager here at CoreView. I get my hands in quite a few different buckets, but today I'm really excited to talk about this new license pool concept and how it plays into the overall license management story using CoreView. So yeah, let's jump right into it. I'm here in the CoreView interface. I am currently connected to a tenant called Demo Company. It's one of a couple of different tenants that I manage with this particular account. And yeah, I'm gonna jump in and start managing some licenses. So for those of you that aren't familiar, license pools allow us to define essentially logical boundaries for our general larger pool of licenses that we have at our disposal for the tenant, kind of subdivide those up into specific categorical use cases. To set those up, you go into settings to license pools, and you can kind of define them on a variety of criteria. I happened to choose in this case just to go by the country attribute, but I might have triggered this off of department. I might have triggered this off of some custom attribute for business unit or for agency, whatever the case may be. I kept it to country to keep things simple, but you definitely do have options here. And as you can see here, I've got this set of pools. So I've got an Australia pool, a China pool, a France pool, and so on and so forth. Basically meaning there are subsets of my licenses that I want to be owned by these geographic designations. So now what does that mean? That means that if I go into my reports, I should be able to go under licenses and see a license pool center. Now, historically, I'm seeing a flat list, and this is kind of what Dan had alluded to. I mean, it's a great use case, but it wasn't really something that people got super excited about because it, as useful as the information is, it maybe wasn't as optimally intuitive as it could have been. But as you can see here, you can jump into the license pool report, and you can see kind of your breakdown of things according to the different SKUs that you've set up for those pools, how many are assigned, consumed, available. And getting around here was feasible, but not optimum. So we've kind of changed all that. We've created this new license pool center, which really drastically enhances the experience, I'm just gonna minimize that there, of traversing the license pool experience. So here in this filter assistant, you can see that I'm currently looking at the master data. This is kind of the top level flat spreadsheet, so to speak, of our license pool designations. And this is just all the tabular data that we're working with. And I can certainly take you through that, but it really starts to make good sense when you start to pare this down. So if I want to group, for instance, all these pools by their SKUs, I can now look at this information on a SKU by SKU basis. And I can even kind of collapse these guys so we can get a better sense here. So these are all the different SKUs that are involved in the various license pools that I've created. And if I were to dig into one, for instance, my E5s here, I can see in a quick second how many users are actually in those pools, how many licenses, E5s in this cases, are allocated to that pool in total, and then by pool, how many are not of my total allocated to that pool, and then how many are actually assigned to users within that pool, and then how many are remaining. So we get a bird's eye view of some really good information. I could also group these by the pools themselves and see the same information from a different angle. So here again, if I collapse down, I can see, what is allocated to United States right now? Well, I've got 4 dynamics, 120 some odd E3s, 50 some odd E5s, and so on and so forth. So I can get that information very, very quickly. And by the way, if I were to click into any one of these hyperlinkable assigned to users values, it'll take me to an active user report and just show me those exact users. So then I can just take that information and kind of start working with it. I'm going to jump back over to the license pools. And now is where we start to actually start putting immediate out-of-the-box logic into this stuff. So great, I can see my overviews. I can kind of view things from afar. I can edit right in line if I need to. I can run reports to show me user reports and so on. Here though, SKUs over allocated on pool, this is a great one. If I were to click this, suddenly I'm immediately seeing of those pools that I've got configured, which pools have been over allocated. Now, the whole purpose of having license pools to begin with is not only just to kind of segregate those categorical distinctions for reporting purposes, but we can also put constraints in place that mean, look, whenever I'm allocating, I want those allocations to come from specific pools, and I want to be able to prevent things like over allocation. So here, since I've retroactively assigned these license pools to my tenant, in a snap, I can come in and see, well, look, there's a handful of SKUs that I need to go adjust. And I can jump in there and I can actually edit the number of licenses that are allocated to that pool to assuage that offense or error message. So depending on what the use case is, I might need to go through some procurement process to get more licenses, or I might need to shift around some of the pool distinctions and designations there to make room for, so to speak. So that's a really cool thing. As you can see here, when I've got this opened, if I jump in, I can just immediately edit any of those pools. So right now I'm in France, and France is only tracking E3s, and it's over by 3. And I've got 10 E3s here that are not allocated to any pools. So I actually have inventory that I can reassign here to make that good. And bam, I'm off to the races. So now my pools list updates automatically. I can go into Japan. Let's see what Japan's got allocated. They're currently using 5. They've got 5 E5s allocated to them, and they're over by 2. Now I might either run the report to see those users and decommission some users, and we'll look at that use case in a moment. Or again, come in here and allocate the correct number to give that pool what's necessary to make it true. So again, one of many ways to process this data. The other bullet point over here on the left, SKUs out of capacity or inventory. This is kind of a global license view. This is showing me in my actual global pool what's getting close to 0. Now I've got a bunch of F1s that I've got 0 F1s in this case. So I can see here, I don't have any licenses to play with in the context of any pool for the case of that F1 SKU. So hopefully what this points out is it's much easier now to get to useful data, useful information about the pools that you've designated with a much more intuitive interface and a lot easier, more quality of life features to make it very simple to manage this and administer it. Now, how does this all apply to the concept of license management in general? There's a couple of ways I want to highlight two. First and foremost, what is oft overlooked feature in CoreView is that every license pool you create can theoretically be mirrored into a virtual tenant. So, for instance, if I were to jump into my settings for this tenant, I'm acting as tenant admin at the moment, by the way. If I were to go to my organization and into settings, under virtual tenant, you'll see this, under license pools, you'll see this little toggle that says enable license pools for virtual tenants. And that means if that is enabled, disabled by default, by the way, if it is enabled, that means that in the license pool designations configuration area, I can actually create virtual tenants from my existing license pools. Now, what does that mean? That means that, again, considering that the purpose of a license pool is to not only give us cool reporting capabilities, but also put in place constraints, I might designate a license pool to particular operators. For instance, if Roy here is responsible for onboarding new users in his purview or department, he is part of the US team, so he is only ever to be allocating licenses from the US pool. If I were to apply that pool to Roy and also apply that virtual tenant, not only have I affected which licenses he has access to manage, but I'm also affecting which users will show up in his reports, just like a virtual tenant. So it's kind of an automatic ready-made virtual tenant for that specific use case. So now whenever Roy goes into a user report, for instance, and is charged with allocating a license for Aaron, when he goes to manage licenses for that user, he'll be managing licenses specifically and strictly from the US pool. And if that US pool doesn't have available licenses allocated to it, then he will not be able to allocate that license. So this is a way, again, to put constraints on to prevent ourselves from over allocating, so that when it comes time for our license inventory at the whatever part of the year that happens, we're confident that when we go into that license pools report, we're going to see accurate information relevant to our enterprise needs. So that's a really great thing. The other thing is, remember, again, this virtual tenant concept, but also whenever we run these this license report section, Optimization Center, now that I can have intel about which pools are what, and when I run those license pools reports, I can see who's over allocated. I can jump into those user reports. I'm immediately able to, correlate that to my Optimization Center results. I know that I have 19 disabled licensed users. Now it's much easier for me to jump in and kind of correlate those two bits of information, build a use case, build a story, and start to actually edit, manage, and work with my users. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. There's a million other ways I can kind of pivot this into playbooks and workflows and all the other wonderful remediation concepts we have here, but I'll keep it short and to the point there. So hopefully this has been useful to kind of see what this new License Pool Center gives us access to do, how easy it is now to kind of identify where our overages are, where our capacity limits are, and kind of jump in and immediately start editing things and managing license pools in a much more intuitive way, so that when it comes to our overall license management use cases, we have more compelling information to work with. So I'll step down from the soapbox at that point. Hopefully this was useful, and if there's any questions, obviously just shoot them over to us. Other than that, I guess, Dan, I'll pass it right back on to you.
All right, thank you, Roy. Transition back to me as presenter, and away we go. All right, perfect. All right, so for our poll, Emily, why don't you take it away and help walk us through our poll?
Perfect. So I am from the UK, if you cannot already tell from my accent. And in the UK, we have a game called Never Have I Ever. So we have this kind of version in our poll today. So you should see it on the screen. So never have I ever, and then you select the options that have applied to you. So never have I ever bought more E5s and then found a bunch unused, had to fight to defend a licensing cross-charge report, rushed license allocation for late discovered new hires, and issued Teams voice licenses to non-callers. So if you have experienced any of these, then please feel free to select them. I can see that some of you have bought more E5s and then found some unused. I can see that some of you have also had to fight to defend some cross-charging reports and also had to rush through some license allocation. Hopefully, the demo that Roy just showed everyone can help with some of these issues in terms of license allocation and repurposing old licenses. Cool, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll off, but just wanted to show you guys one of the kind of games that we play over here in the UK.
All right, so the license pools that you just saw, we do have a number of customers that have been participating in the beta with us. You saw that it said beta on the screen. So it is live and in production. It will be made available to all customers in an upcoming release, either this week or in our next release. The other thing that we're doing, and this is, I really wish it was the demo version was ready to show today, but it wasn't. But one of the other things that we're doing with the new license pools is we have a new full screen mode, and I'm really excited about it because it's the first report where we're going to have this, where, you know, when you're looking at the report, right, you've got the navigation down to the side and you've got, you know, headings and menus up at the top and stuff like that. This is going to allow you to pop up and pop out and essentially see a full screen version of the report to give you sort of maximum real estate when working in that report. So I'm excited about that because I think that's a feature we need in a lot of our reports. And so we're waiting to kind of include that as part of the general release. If you saw this and you're dying to get it, you're like, I can't wait any longer, I'm itching to get it, talk to your CSM. We can always add you to the beta, and we love the feedback. We're confident that the product's ready. We just have a few last bits of polishing before we release it to everybody. So what's coming next? We had a lot going on. Now that we're through the new UX project, right, I'm amazed at how quickly we are able to go and how much new stuff we're able to deliver. You saw a wealth of that in what we just announced, and we've got a lot coming up the next quarter. So the first thing that we're doing, or one thing we're doing that doesn't affect all of our customers, but it affects a decent subset, are people who are working in multiple tenants. It's also useful if you are trying to build like a staging tenant, right? Where maybe you want one environment where you do testing and demo of your workflow before you push it to production. The idea of configuration templates is that you can go in, you can configure, and we're starting out with playbooks. You can go in, you can configure playbooks in one tenant. And then what you can do is you can kind of pull it out and then apply it to all of your other tenants. So if you're a multi-tenant customer, you know, maybe you're a state agency, you know, and you've got multiple agencies, maybe you're planning on still consolidating down to one tenant. Maybe you've consolidated as much as you can and you're not going to go anymore, but you really love to have kind of consistency across your tenants. This will allow you to do that. It'll allow you to create those policies once and then apply them across all of your tenants. So again, it's kind of supports the use case of multi-tenant. It supports the use case of like staging, going to production. And we're starting with playbooks, but the plan is also to extend that to workflow and custom reports as well. So the whole goal, of course, is really improving the efficiency for multi-tenant management. The other thing we're doing around multi-tenant is multi-tenant license reporting, right? Is providing the ability for organizations to be able to see across their tenants. And again, this is really only valuable if you have multiple production tenants, to be able to see what licenses you've purchased, you've used. So all of the work that we just did on the new license pools, we're going to take that, abstract it, and instead of looking at it as pools within a tenant, we're going to say, well, let's look at it as tenants within an organization and have that same concept, being able to see how many have been purchased, how many have been assigned to users, how many do we have remaining, what our utilization rate is, be able to kind of look at that as a pivot table, to look at it by SKU instead of by tenant. So again, the whole goal here is to be able to give that visibility and assist organizations in understanding where they have kind of that unused capacity maybe sitting around, and whether that helps with an upcoming renewal or whether that's just ongoing maintenance and management. It's meant to help you if you're that kind of organization. Now, something that maybe you don't care about because you're already onboarded with CoreView, but just so you understand where our attention is focused, is around onboarding. As we need to make it dead simple for customers to get started with us, and it starts with onboarding. And we know, I'm sure if we polled a lot of people on the call who went through the onboarding, I'm sure it was, not everybody had the smoothest experience, whether they started down the process and then found out that they hadn't disabled MFA, or they had MFA through conditional access, or they didn't have the right account access but they had already started the process, et cetera, et cetera. We've identified all of these kind of little steps that people have struggled with. And so we are redesigning the onboarding process to make it easier and more error friendly, right? In other words, if I get stuck at a step, it'll allow me to pause, go kind of resolve that step, and come back and self-service, kind of continue through the process. So I won't have to reach out to support to get the import going and what have you. I'll be able to manage this myself, and it'll give me better visibility as to what's going on, so that once we get through the process and we've started the import, you'll also be able to understand where are we in the import, how soon is it going to be before we're ready to go. So again, just making it easier to get started with CoreView. Now with workflow, we've got a lot of different work planned. Mostly our goal is to make workflow walk up and use. We know from talking to our power users, our power users are getting a lot of capability out of CoreView. Now, some of the things that we want to do is we want to cut down on the need to use custom actions. And we know one of the reasons people need custom actions is because they don't have as much flexibility to control the inputs that they'd like to have. So instead of, whereas our out-of-the-box workflow steps might require 4 fields, and you're like, we don't want to require 4 fields, we'll only want to require 2. We're going to give more flexibility around that. And we've identified a number of ease of use capabilities just to really lower the bar so that you don't have to be super technical in order to configure our workflow. Our goal is to be better than Power Automate, right? So that's a target we're looking at. So we're never going to say that you don't have to be at all technical, that you need maybe some background, but we're going to continue to lower that bar, make it easier and easier for users to get value out of our workflow and be able to walk up and use it. That includes things like reordering steps, right? This is one of our top requests. People are just dying for that ability to be able to move the steps around, because they started down the road and they said, I need to change this, or they found that it just wasn't a logical sequence of steps. So being able to reorder is a key thing that people are looking to do. And then scheduling delays. This is another thing that we've understood needs to be improved in our system. Whereas there's different needs for delays. One need for delays is, hey, I can't always count on things being ready in Microsoft as soon as I create them. So let's say, for example, I have a 2-step process where first I'm going to create a user in Active Directory, and then I'm going to give them a mailbox. sometimes I'll have to insert a delay because when I create that user, I basically have to wait for AD to acknowledge that it's there and everything before I go to step 2. If I try to create the mailbox too soon before the user exists, that's going to fail. And so people insert delays for that reason. We want to make more of that put less burden on the user to create the delay and more intelligence within the application to kind of intelligently retry and kind of understand which transitions, like between AD and Exchange, for example, should require a delay and which ones shouldn't. So we're gonna put more smarts around that delay. The other use case for a delay is, let's say you want to do something like in offboarding. I say, I'm going to offboard a user, and as of the day that they offboard, I'm going to turn their mailbox into a shared mailbox. I'm going to give access to these 5 people, and I'm going to, reassign their OneDrive to their former manager. And then 30 days from now, what I want to do is I want to then, turn off more people that have access to that shared mailbox, and then in 6 months I want to delete it, something like that. Let's say you have that kind of workflow. Instead of doing that as a delay, what we want to do is turn that into like a scheduled process, so that instead of saying, well, I have to calculate a delay and how many seconds is 6 months, we'll be able to say, well, what we want to do is we want to schedule a second workflow, a follow-up workflow to occur 30 days from now or 60 days from now. And that way it's not just a delay where sort of the system is considered open and running. It's, okay, we finished step 1, finished process 1, then we're going to go run the second process after a scheduled delay or a scheduled period of time. So those are some of the things that we have focused around making workflow easier to use. With health check and dashboards, we're going through some design changes here, bringing together the playbook and the playbook and the health check dashboards into one governance center that allows us to kind of manage all of that. As part of that, we're going to be introducing new roles called a playbook admin and playbook viewer, so that a user does not have to be a tenant admin in order to be able to kind of manage playbooks, and that you can have a viewer role. People can come in, they can see the dashboards, but they can't necessarily take any actions. As well as being able to do more custom emails. So people want to use our playbooks, but they want to modify the emails that go out with as part of the policies. So give people more control around those emails as well. With SharePoint, we are planning still the SharePoint members report to give people access to be able to drill down not just from the sites, but to be able to see who the SharePoint members are, be able to manage them more effectively, and be able to, again, divide and conquer, to be able to delegate a responsibility out for those SharePoint sites so that people can manage members of different sites. From a UX perspective, just improving the user experience as a whole. As I mentioned, full screen mode is one of the things that we have in progress, where that'll be first done for license pools, to be able to get that, as much view on, or as many columns and as many rows on the screen as possible. And then also the ability to have some other changes around quick edit. So one of the things that used to exist in the legacy UX that not a lot of people knew about, but those who knew loved it, was this quick edit capability. So that if you were in a user report, rather than going to the user card and then having to do a management action, there was a quick edit which allowed you to just pop open some data about the user and do a quick edit and save it. And then that went through the appropriate steps of actually acting as a management action. But it was a real time accelerator for those who knew it, but the design didn't make it clear that people what it was, and people didn't know about it. But like I said, those who knew and loved it, and begged us to bring it back. And so that's going to be something that we've got coming in the user experience as well. We still got plans around custom action lifecycle. We're going to work on the delete custom action first, so that if you've created versions of custom actions or you created one a while ago, you don't use it any longer, you know, they're kind of cluttering up your custom actions, you want to get them out of the way, we're going to give you the ability to delete, and then further down the road, we'll have the edit capability as well. We're also working on dynamic groups. So the ability for you to manage your dynamic groups within CoreView. So that involves us building a new like rule builder, right? A new dynamic group rule builder to be able to build out or to be able to edit a dynamic group that might have been created natively in Microsoft, but you want to be able to edit it within CoreView. And what I'm really excited about this is I think it's the first case of us being able to build dynamic things. So we're starting with dynamic groups, but we're also looking at dynamic distribution lists. We're also looking at things like group-based licensing. So I think once we have this rule builder, we'll be able to extend it to different things. The challenge is just how much consistency is there within Microsoft to have us build something that's an abstraction of these different things that were built in Microsoft. But that's what we're working on, is this concept of being able to manage dynamic things and have a firmer understanding of what is within the group once you have created a dynamic group. We have additional focus groups where we're still in requirements with an eye to being able to deliver in 2024. So being able to do more conditional access management, like I said, kind of building on that concept of dynamic things. I think we could take that same concept and apply it to conditional access, and then also managing the Power Platform. So at the beginning, we popped up a focus group scanner for you if you're interested in any of these topics and you want to give your thoughts and opinions, you want to share your input, you want to see early designs, you want to have the opportunity to be a beta tester if we release features early, like we've started to do more frequently, like we've done with license pools. We are very interested in you being able to participate. And so again, the center tile here is the scanner if you are interested in joining a focus group, but we also have other things here. If you just simply want to give us some feedback and help us, with our kind of our public face, as it were, out in reviewing, so other people can learn the great things that CoreView does. We'd love that. And also, if you're interested in the engineering workshops that are being held for customers and you want to make sure that you're seeing when those are scheduled and have the opportunity to see the ones that have already been released, you can scan that as well. So at this time, we could take questions for a few minutes. I know we scheduled this for 45 minutes, but I'm always too talkative. But we could stay for a few minutes and answer any questions that you might have, and I'll open it up.
Perfect. Well, if you do have any questions, you have our emails, so please feel free to send your questions over there. And thank you for joining us all today. And thank you very much for Dan and Roy for hosting today's webinar. It was very informative.